Okay, so let's rip through this whole process. So you've got your model done, or at least you think you do. And so before we're going to go on to hitting the UV, we just kind of want to make sure that everything's where it should be. So the first step, pretty easy to remember. This one here, we're just going in, edit mode, go into the vertice mode, hitting A, and just Alt M is your shortcut. And this is going to be merge by distance. And you can see here it got rid of 8, even though it didn't look like there was any real issues to deal with. Now another thing you can do, if you're finding there's a lot of vertices that are kind of close but not 100% on top of each other, you can play around with the fact that the merge distance by default comes in at incredibly low. If you set it to like 0.01, you can kind of judge to see if it's going to merge any of the other vertices. This one here is fine with just the default. I got rid of the ones that we were looking to kind of get rid of. So next step after that one is looking for your non-manifold geometry. So this is looking for anything that exists kind of within your model, or it's just not letting this be like a whole shape, so to speak. Internal geometry or stuff that doesn't need to be there. There should be one solid kind of hollow shape. Really important for 3D printing and a lot of times for 3D engines and whatnot, so it can do proper calculations on it and all that sort of thing. So with that, same deal. We're going into edit mode. And so for this one here, we go polygon and we choose select by trait, and we can find interior faces. And you can just barely see it, but we're seeing some edges here. Going in with the Alt Z, and we can see what it's finding. And we're just doing an X and getting rid of faces, and that is it for that. Also, another thing you may want to try is being in vertex mode and doing that same thing. Select by trait and going non-manifold, because this one will, if you have shapes that don't quite make any sense, like flat polygons that are coming off that don't have another side to them and all this kind of stuff, it's able to find the other one. So between the two of them, in polygon mode or vertice mode, you're going to find where things are. Now, with that said, if you're in vertice mode and you do this, it will light up anything that has an open face to it. So if you have other geometry sticking into and it has an open face, you just keep that in mind as you're doing that part of the process. It will light them up, but there's nothing wrong with them as long as they're tucked in. So moving on, I'm going to go back into solid. So polygon reduction. So there's a few ways to do this. Most important way is to kind of get in the habit of looking at your shape and just seeing geometry that is not doing any work. So for instance, this one here, it's a complete crosshair in the fact that it's not changing this way, it's not changing this way, so that is a completely useless set of geometry there. Same here. And one thing I've seen people get in the habit of doing, so you can go in, I just did an alt click to grab that whole edge. And so if you do a dissolve, it does settle this issue right here for sure. What you got to keep in mind though is now it's created a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-sided polygon. And you can manually fix that and just kind of go in and just give that another edge, just grabbing the two vertices and hitting J to join it. Or if you're kind of thinking a little bit further ahead, knowing that this edge here also needs to go. So alt-clicking that one and Control X to dissolve the edge. And then seeing, okay, it's created a 6-sided polygon, but if I go to vertices and grab those two and join them, and then grab these two and join them, then this is a 4-sided, that's a 4-sided, and all this useless geometry is missing. Also, too, you'd be looking for things that are really, really close together. So this one here, it's actually not doing anything as well. We could actually just take and weld that to it. But before we do that, I kind of want to show you kind of a quick and dirty way of kind of hitting a whole bunch of these issues in one fell swoop. So what we're looking to do is right in tab to get out of edit mode. And we're going into decimation. And we choose the planar mode. Angle limit is 5%. By default. If your object is incredibly boxy, this may actually be a little bit too high, but for this is fine. And of course, we can't see what it's doing unless we actually go into kind of the edge mode here, and I'm going to turn X-ray off so it makes more sense. So what it's doing is only keeping intact the geometry that is actually doing work, so to speak. And so this edge here needs to be there. It's coming up. We're seeing that it actually got rid of that edge that I put in here because it's actually not doing anything per se. It is making the 4-sided polygons be there, but as far as the actual geometry, it doesn't need it. And we're seeing it got rid of these edges here. So that's kind of one good step. What I'm going to do is go back into shaded mode and take this and actually just apply it. So now we can go into edit mode and see what we've got here. So it has cleaned up all the extra edges. What it's done though, unfortunately, is to take and give us a bunch of 6, 8, 10, and 12-sided figures. Like this one here even took this part away and that one there. So we got, so this whole polygon is one. So easy to fix. Get into polygon mode, hit A to grab everything and right click. And what we want to do is triangulate the faces. And that looks terrible. So we want to right click again and go tries to quads. And we're taking this bottom number, max shape angle, crank it up to 180. And what it's going to do is pretty much get you back to either triangles or quads, but no 5-sided shapes and all that. And with that series of steps done, we're seeing it actually got rid of this extra little shape here. If I'd actually left those in, it would have gotten rid of those. So knowing to do that is kind of a first good step. It will get rid of a bunch of things that you're not even seeing, and then you can just quad it again to turn it into a nice shape. All right, and then I'll go into the rest after this commercial break.